Welcome once again to Unearthly Upstate.
Yep, my name is Mari Manette.
And my name is Matthew Manette.
And we're doing another soft episode. This one again is practice for us, but hopefully we find it interesting. And we're going to talk about a legend that we have actually, well, I shouldn't say we've experienced the legend, but we're familiar with the location. But the funny thing is, I don't think we heard the legend until after we were done being in the area. I don't think we actually heard the legend while we were there. But it still makes for interesting stories. What we're going to talk about is near Syracuse, New York. Some places have a South Onondaga, but the location is Cedarville Road. Now, Cedarville Road near Syracuse, New York, even during the day, this 1 mile section of road can be a little frightening. Although for some drivers, it might be the thought of another driver speeding down the road in the other direction and miscalculating a curve. 13 Curves is an ominous and correct name for this stretch of Cedarville Road. During the summer, the curves are dark even in the day. The trees are lying close to the road. In winter, the curves might be slippery, but there's one more danger to watch for, a ghostly bride in white, sometimes covered in blood, that can be seen somewhere along the road. You remember those stories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I had that job at the corn maze back in 06, and that was fun. Oh, that was great. But it was like 4 weeks. Actually, it started last week of September and ran all the way through to Halloween. And I was down there every weekend.
During prime haunting time.
Exactly. And sometimes on Thursdays, for special events at the corn maze. And so I could be there like 2 or 3 nights a week for 4 weeks straight. And never had a single encounter. Traveling down 13 curves.
Well, there's definitely a lot of stories about it. I'll give you an example. We got our first legend. It was about 6 years ago. A young couple was driving to their destination, for their honeymoon. They took Cedarville Road. The groom took the 6th curve a little too fast and ended up crashing the car, killing them both. Since that night, the bride has been searching for her groom. Aww. Legend 2 is very similar to Legend 1, but in this case, they both survive. Yay! The groom leaves his bride in the car to get help. She falls asleep. Aww. And when she wakes the next day, she finds him dead outside the car. The shock kills her.
No reason, no explanation as to why he was found dead outside the car at this point.
A couple of them, they say he was found hung outside the car. So I'm going to circle back. I have my theory on that one.
All right.
But,
circle back to number 2.
In Legend 3, the groom survived, but he couldn't find his bride.
Oh. Perhaps thrown from the car during the crash, maybe? Maybe,
yeah. But, when you go back to Legend 2, there's the famous urban legend of the young couple out in the car, and, they hear the radio station say, "Ooh, there's an escaped maniac out there." And
beware of a strange maniac escaped from the local insane asylum.
And they hear something in the car. The boyfriend goes out to investigate.
Right.
And he's found hanging from the car, the tree above the car. So, and then she takes off, and when she gets home, she finds the hook from the killer, the hooked hand killers. That
basically a typical beginning to any supernatural episode.
I think they actually did that storyline at the beginning of a supernatural episode.
For the apple orchard.
Yes,
I think so.
But no, it's a very famous urban legend. So I think in this case it was, let's combine this bloody bride with the hooked man, and that's why her groom unexpectedly is hanging from the tree the next morning.
Oh, so it's a combination of legends.
Yeah. Well, this is a very lady in white legend. There are
it is.
thousands of lady in white
Since it's only the bride people see and never the groom.
Never the groom. Never the groom. And she's sometimes just in white, sometimes she's in a bloody dress, but she's always in a wedding gown. And here's something else that's interesting. Why is it always 60 years ago?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
You did that one in 04, you said? 06?
06, yeah.
06, okay. 13 years ago. It was still 60 years ago this happened. So.
Yeah, another one of those stories that has difficulty with the timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, because another group of the legends about this bride, they're not even in a car. They're in a horse and carriage. Mm-hmm. So it could be that this legend's been told about this spooky section of road. Let's not poo-poo the fact the road is spooky.
It is.
It is spooky.
It's very Sleepy Hollow-like.
Yeah.
Especially when traveling to the maze, to the corn maze that I was working at, it was always still light out. Mm-hmm. But then traveling back, it was always dark.
Yeah.
And so,
I remember driving down that road, it was dusk, and you got just, it felt like as the time went forward a couple hours, because it seemed so much darker there, because the way the trees block the sunlight.
Yes, it's definitely a hollow sort of situation there with how close the trees are.
I mean, it's gorgeous.
To the ditch. Oh, yeah, it's a lovely stand of trees down around that way.
Scary, and we've got cats fighting, folks.
Yeah. If you happen to hear the hissing and the spitting. Oh, hush you. Oh, come on, honey. Lloyd's just trying to play.
Yes. Okay, we should introduce Honey, and Lloyd.
And Lloyd.
The two that would probably interrupt us a lot. Yes. There's a third one who may interrupt us too, Ori. Mm-hmm. So
Lloyd wants to play. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, chew on my lip. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Well, to continue with the story, I'm going to, if you don't mind me going back to reading now that we're interrupted by the felines.
Our furry friends.
The bride haunts the curves. Some people claim she appears next to them in their cars while they're driving. Others have had her appear in the back seat.
Oh, yeah, that's really kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Having something just, pop right in the back seat. That's weird.
But unlike other ghostly hitchhikers, she doesn't interact with the driver except to scare him and her.
Right.
Some have seen her crossing the road as they approach one of the many curves. Some stories say she only appears on Friday the 13th. Others say Halloween, but everyone agrees there's a ghost on a road. Well, you were driving there, prime haunt time.
Absolutely.
It was October. You even was there on Halloween.
On Halloween, the very day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and nothing.
Nothing.
The most scary thing that happened
right now is Lloyd biting your toe. But...
Oh, it's okay. He's fine. He likes to bite the feet, and he concentrates on the toes, then have the calluses on them. So that's okay. And he hates it when you've got your slipper socks on.
Yeah.
He really doesn't like that. But bare feet are his favorite.
Anyway, you're interrupting our podcast here, kitty. Anyway.
If you're ever wondering, yes, Lloyd is this beautiful Siamese.
That doesn't speak.
No, he's very, very quiet for a Siamese kitty. Mm-hmm. And he's got kind of a problem with his extra... Cats have like more than one eyelid, and he's got one on a little bit of a problem. The lid on his left eye is kind of stuck, so it looks like he's got a cataract.
Yeah, he's fine.
But it's a bit of a defect he was born with, but it's okay.
And Honey's our old orange queen. She's a sweetie pie, though.
Yeah, he is. Both are adorable, nonetheless.
Can we get back to the bride?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Alrighty. Very ominous kind of environment down there at the 13 Curves. And whether you believe it or not, it does, the atmosphere does get a bit oppressive, especially around dusk, when it seems like the area around the 13 Curves is darker, than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And as you said, I noticed that time differential, kind of, entering 13 Curves area on my way to and from the corn maze.
Yeah.
And thank goodness I didn't have to drive through the whole thing.
Yeah.
I only had to drive through a section of the 13 Curves. Well, maybe that's the difference. I didn't drive.
You drove through the whole thing.
I drove through the whole thing, did I?
You did drive through the whole thing.
Yeah, because I'm having difficulty casting my memory back.
Because that section of Cedarville Road, there's like crossroads at one end and a crossroads at the other. There's nothing in between except the people who live there. They've got houses near there. But no, yeah, we drove through the whole thing.
Through the whole thing, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So having driven through the entirety multiple times, well, the funnest time I had at the corn maze was when we did the overnight, and we were doing the corn maze in the dark, actually in the dark, and we were guiding people through the maze with our flashlights in our costumes, and I had my cloak and cowl on with one of my masks, and just to make it easier, I put the mask. I reversed the mask behind me, and when people would follow behind me, it looked like I was kind of floating in front of them. and it kind of, people commented that looked kind of creepy.
Maybe you were spotted as the bride that year.
I'm dressed all in black.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, there are been sightings of the bride, but have proven not to be the bride.
Oh, yeah, people have pranked, yeah.
Oh, yeah, people have pranked. A good example is Syracuse.com, November 2nd, 2007. There was a story that said, "The Bride of 13 Curves unveiled!" with 3 exclamation points.
Oh, what is the significance of the 3 exclamation points?
Well, Terry Pratchett said in one of his books, 5 exclamation points, a sign of deranged mind. So this person's getting close. Anyway, the article stated that there had been ghosts appearing along the road for years. It was a prop ghost created by David D'Ambrosio, who hung a prop of a ghostly bride between 2 trees next to the road. The thing was, when they asked him about it, he said, well, he had heard about the legend and decided to hang
It'd be
prop
fun to put something out and
Yeah.
give folks a thrill.
And some people do that too on Halloween. They'll dress up as a bride and go wandering up and down that stretch of road, and which would really be confusing if like 2 or more people decide to do the same thing. You go around curve, oh, there's a bride. You go around the next curve, there's another bride. You got 13 brides on the 13 curves, and that could be very confusing, I bet.
And not a single groom.
Yeah. What happened to him? Let me know.
Yeah, what happened to the groom?
Other than the ones where he died, what happened to him?
Well, there's only one legend in which he died, right?
No, one where they both died.
All right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then one where she woke up and found him hanging from the tree for whatever reason. Yeah.
And then the time when he couldn't find her.
Yeah, that was the one where he survived only.
Supposedly thrown from the vehicle.
Probably. Yeah. Well, to give some idea, having been up and down that road, there's a lot of gullies. There's a lot of deep ditches, and it's very brush covered and bramble covered. And yeah, if someone did get thrown from a car, it would be hard to find their body, for reals.
Yeah.
It would be very hard to find their body.
Yeah, it would
You'd have to get the dogs in there, and because
there's some deep ditches, some deep embankments alongside the curves, 13 curves, and if you were to go flying out the windshield,
I could generally see somebody during the winter miss a curve, go flying, and people might not notice the car stuck 20 some odd feet away from the road because of they might notice the snows. Might notice the damage to the trees, might notice the snow stir, but are they going to see the car?
Well, the section of railing that's been busted out.
Oh, that railing is pretty beat up in some areas because you can tell
it
that's
is.
where people have.
You can see where people have collided with it.
Yeah, so that's why it's a bit dangerous to go dressing up like the bride along the road.
I'm kidding. I'd only go walking on the inside of the curve, not the outside.
The prop was a good idea. I mean...
Well, it was, that way you don't have to be actually out there.
Right.
For people to... and you don't want to distract people when they're going around those curves, because having been around them myself, they're they can get kind of dicey in the right kind of weather conditions.
Oh, yeah.
There were some rainy conditions under which it made the curves pretty slippery, and you have to take it pretty easily.
The nice thing about this legend, to do a practice episode on, is this is a good example of it's a good story.
Yeah, it is.
There is no historical basis. There was never an accident there of a newlywed couple. I'm sure there's been accidents there. I mean, just the nature of the road would make it dangerous, especially if you're stupid enough to take those curves too fast.
Yeah, there's no actual documentation of any newlywed couple going off the curves there. No actual,
which makes the horse and carriage one interesting because unless the horses were spooked in that story, it's never, the versions I've heard, I've never heard that. The horses would have an easier time negotiating those curves than a car would. You know, you wouldn't go too fast. You wouldn't, even if you had those horses go, whipping them at full speed,
right, exactly.
They wouldn't go that fast.
And unless you've grown up around horses like I have, you might be skeptical about how fast a couple of horses drawing a carriage can go.
Yeah, but they've also got the self-preservation that a car does not. So in other words,
that's true.
Granted, okay, maybe if they took the hill section with the curve a little too fast and the wagon got away from them, but they said horse and carriage. They didn't say horse and hay wagon.
That carriage could slide off to the side, carrying the horses with it.
Well, they never said how many horses. I'm envisioning two, but it could be one, maybe a sickly one, maybe a pony.
I was thinking maybe a more healthier horse. A healthier horse would be able to go fast.
What about a brown or a Belgian?
Oh, too slow. No.
Too slow? Oh,
this would be a horse that would be bred for pulling a carriage, which would be a lighter horse, somewhere around a hackney pony, somewhere in between a hackney pony and American saddlebred, somewhere around there. And, a lighter horse that would be able to go fast.
What I'm saying is speed was probably not the factor with the horses.
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably the carriage getting ahead of the animal
or
and
something
sliding
spooky
to the
animal.
side. Right.
Which is possibly, I was more scared of deer jumping out in front of me going down that road than I was of any ghost. Because it's the perfect area for deer. I mean, and it would be an area where they would where we grew up in northern Wisconsin, roads like that, man, you would see deer all the time. They would usually right in front of you and just slamming on the brakes, So that was my fear going up and down that road. I was like, God, I hope a deer doesn't jump out at me. So, a deer jumped out in front of that horse, definitely more than 60 years ago. Horse got, scared, knocked the carriage over, boom, start of a legend.
Right.
Except, there's no story. I mean, there's no newspaper article to that effect. Like I said, there's probably been accidents on that road. Might be even a fatal one here and there, but never with newlyweds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never newlyweds,
Yeah.
So, plenty of people who've gotten into accidents along 13 curves. I guess if we bothered to actually look into,
we could, but
yeah, we could at this moment probably look into it and see whether or not any accidents have occurred. I'm sure they have.
Oh yeah,
around the 13 curves,
especially in winter.
Yeah, because those railings look pretty beat up.
Yeah,
and they look as if they've been hit by trucks or something like that. Not just cars, but
that's what I said.
There's a lot of traffic.
Probably a lot of accidents, but probably nothing fatal. Probably a lot of when people just pushed the car out of away from the guardrail and took off. I mean,
absolutely.
But again, it's a good example of it's a good story.
Yeah.
There's really no history basis of it, but it's so ingrained in that area. We were just moved to the area. You got that job at the corn maze, and we never heard the story. Or we may have heard the story and didn't put two and two together until later. And then when we put two and two together, it was like, wait a minute, we were up and down that road all the time. And we didn't see anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gosh. I've been drove that that stretch of road for weeks. And I never saw a thing and never knew anything about. Now that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Having not known anything about the legend, if I had actually seen something.
Right.
Now that would have made it even more intriguing. because I wouldn't have any previous knowledge about it. But if you got previous knowledge about it and then you see it, that makes, people hearing the story a little bit more skeptical.
Yeah.
Than if someone who doesn't know anything about it goes into the area and then has an encounter. And that makes it a lot more, I guess, believable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking too. There's a lot of culverts around there.
Yes.
And it could be. Remember what you were talking about? You hear voices, water going down the drain.
Yes. Water trickling through a pipe, and from a distance, it sounds like music or voices.
Here's the thing, though. I was going to say maybe that's part of it. They'll hear something and think they hear the bride, but nobody ever talks about hearing the bride. They only talk about seeing the bride.
Exactly. It's more of a visual more than an auditory experience.
So, okay, you're driving down the road and you see something white. But you see a flash of it.
Are there any birch trees down that way? I forgot.
There's probably. I mean, I could get on Google Maps and take a look.
The trees are very close.
Yeah.
To the side of the road.
I was thinking, like when I drove down there a couple times, like I said, it was towards dusk, and the way the light filters in.
Yeah.
You might catch a flash of what you think is something white in your eye, and it's like sunbeam or something.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be easy to misinterpret that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'd have to look if there's any birch trees in the area, or I'm sure I could get on Google Maps and go on the road and look. Yeah, it's one of these interesting legends that just sticks to this area. I know in the upcoming when we do our first season, that's definitely why I'm doing so many in this one particular area, because there are so many legends in this little area, and some of them are just legends, and some of them really do have a basis in truth.
Right.
But it's very interesting where these legends came up. I mean, I was having a discussion with one of the students today at school, and I had heard about the haunting of this one particular theater at the school, and he started telling me about all the dorms that are haunted.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
But, college legends, they're their own thing, really. But it was interesting. I never heard about those dorms being haunted.
Given the activities you get up to in some of those dorm rooms, you got to take some of these stories with a grain of salt.
Well, it would be interesting because...
especially regarding any consumables that might be,
yes, that still
inhaled.
goes on. Yes, that still goes on.
But
not as badly as it was.
Recently you had a student relate a story.
Oh, yeah, he was telling me about the haunting, about, how this guy was insisting he saw a woman who was drenched in water, and he actually did a little research and found out, that there was a woman who drowned nearby. So that's interesting because, you got people seeing this drowned woman, and the student told me he actually found the report.
Oh, okay.
Now, I just heard about this today. I haven't had much look at it.
That's what makes a story like that interesting.
Yeah.
Is when you have the encounter before you get the report.
Yeah. Yeah. But, sometimes those stories that you think are historical fact can be made up. And we've got another one coming up this season, which I was so excited because in every bit of my research, these people would cite this particular newspaper article. Oh my God, I found the newspaper, I found the day, I found the year, and there on the front page is the headline that I know is related to this particular story.
Yeah.
I read the story, it has nothing to do with the story that's repeated in all the other ones.
Wow.
They're completely different.
Oh, wow.
And the ones that... Now, I'll explain this better when we get to this particular episode, but every element that's said in the one story that was repeated through all my sources is on that front page of that newspaper. It's like somebody took the front page of the newspaper and went, I'm going to take a little bit from this column, I'm going to take a little bit from this column, and I'm going to take a little bit from this column, and I'm going to mix it all up and add my own flourish, and here's the story of what happened that day.
All right.
Now, here's the thing. After reading the one that was oft repeated by these other sources and then finding the actual story, I prefer the actual story because it was written tongue-in-cheek. It was I believe it was an actual event, But the writer did embellish what had happened. But embellished it because he knew... Because he embellished because...
I'm trying to think of which story you're referring to here.
One of the few cryptid ones we're doing.
Oh, okay.
And I think the writer was having fun with the story. I think the event in that story actually happened, and he just embellished it because it made for a fun story. But then somebody comes around years later and decides, I'm going to top that.
Yeah, as I recall...
yeah, and the story that came out after that, when I realized...
The report was rather tongue-in-cheek.
After I realized what the original story was, the original report was... and not the one that was written in all these other sources. And then I reread that one that was written on all these other sources, and I realized, no way in hell would a newspaper write like that. It was definitely written as if somebody wrote it like a short story. The newspaper article, as tongue-in-cheek as it was...
There were some pretty sarcastic lines.
There were some very sarcastic... It was still a newspaper article. It told you who, it told you what, it told you where, it told you how, it told you when. The other story really embellished it. You know, like would give these wonderful sides about this particular person. You know, how many newspaper, I mean, any journalistic, even the bad blogs around here, would give an aside, like a whole paragraph describing somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's more of a short story.
That was relevant to whatever was being conveyed.
But it was interesting because... yes, there was an actual newspaper article about this particular cryptid that happened on that day, but it was not the story that's repeated in the rest of the sources. And if I had more time to research, I'd like to figure out how that got mixed up. I know there's a lot of, and I'm lazy too, there's a lot of lazy research, and I can get lazy with the best of them. But at the same token, there are a lot of good researchers out there, and
there are.
And
there can be,
and I'm wondering how many others have called this out too in this particular one, if they've noticed it. Like, where did this embellishment story come from? Where did this short story come from? And when we get to that one, I'm going to raise every red flag with that short story because. The newspaper article is believable because of the sequence of events that happened in the newspaper article. The short story article, when you sit back and think about it, the biggest question would be, where's the evidence?
Oh, boy.
Now, obviously, we don't have, going back to what we were talking about, we don't have any evidence with the bride.
No.
There's none.
Yeah, there's no newspaper articles about such an incident.
But the thing is, this story doesn't give you an exact date, time, and newspaper article.
Begging the question, how did the legend about 13 Curves get started? How did?
I wonder if it was something as simple as, okay, you know, somebody's going home drunk one night, and an owl flies out from him. I mean, you've heard the theories that Mothman, Point Pleasant, may have been an owl.
Yeah, Flatbush Monster.
Or the Flatbush Monster, too, may have been an owl.
But that doesn't explain the gas.
No, it doesn't. But just think, you know...
and all the cancer.
Oh, maybe not even owl. Okay, think about that area.
Yeah.
It could have been a heron. It could have been a hawk. There are a lot of big birds in there. A lot of seagulls in the area, too. And somebody gets frightened by it, and it just gets embellished from there. You know, especially if you find somebody who likes to tell tall tales.
Oh, for sure. And you get enough of the locals driving the same stretch of road for decades. People who live in the area for years and drive up and down it constantly. You know, something's bound to come up.
Yeah.
Some kind of story is bound to get developed.
Yeah.
Out of that, if not from, I don't know. Perhaps maybe an alcohol-fueled, hallucination, maybe, or perhaps just out of boredom. I don't know. And then somebody, and always 60 years, like you said.
Yeah, it's always 60 years.
Always 60 years in the past, which means,
the story will change.
Yeah, and
60 years from now, this couple was driving and took an Uber to Hancock Airport, and the Uber. You know?
Right, exactly.
You know, it's gonna. This is an example of an urban legend that's never gonna die there. You know,
it's no longer the '62 Pontiac.
This is never going to die. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. It's going to stay with the times. But nothing else has ever happened there to cause it to change. You know, I mean, like I said, there's that one area where we've got so many legends.
The Pontiac Fury was a great car.
We got that one area where you got all those legends and that. But most of the legends we're going to talk about, there's some basis of truth in them. But they still evolve. Things happen up there, and they get, you know, the legend gets changed a little bit. Here, the legend stays the same. I mean, the mode of transport changes. The basic legend stays the same, even though there are multiple versions of it. The main points are you have young bride heading to honeymoon, dies, ghost, boom. What's interesting, though, I just thought of this. The groom's always mentioned. The groom is always mentioned. It's never she was left at the altar and she committed suicide. It was never that he was cruel and he killed her. I mean,
or drove away with the bridesmaid.
Or drove away with the bridesmaid, yeah. It's never that. The groom has always been the loyal one. You know?
The groom has always been there with her.
Yeah. So that's kind of a nice twist.
Despite all this death.
Yeah. That's a nice twist. Yeah, it really is.
Either dies with her, dies of a consequence. Before her,
right?
You know, of some kind of something that befalls him, or.
But he's always with, because there's a lot of these stories.
Survives
and
the bride somehow.
We have another one that's actually based on true crime, where the legend's built up about it. But that's a good example of, well, basically because it's based on the real event, where definitely the male companion in the couple is the evil one. Well, that's a bad example because, like I said, the real event sets that up. But you get the La Lorna stories and you get other women in white stories where the male companion is the bad guy, you know.
Oh yeah, it's always typically the man is always it is
refreshing
of some kind.
It is refreshing to have one where you know, he's mentioned but he's not the bad guy. So that's kind of refreshing with the 13 Curves Ghost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is.
Recommend people go see it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Going on down to Cedarville and take a trip around. Doesn't matter what time of the day. It's always kind of the atmosphere down there is always kind of a little bit ominous.
Yeah.
But more so, of course, towards dusk.
Yeah.
And if that's the kind of experience that you're looking for, then that's what I recommend.
Yeah.
You know, around dusk or after dark. And
just be careful of all the people who are going to be dressed up like the bride jumping out
yes, you certainly look out for the pranksters if there are any out there. Or if anybody's got something staked out there, you know, a mannequin in white.
Yeah, especially if it's Friday the 13th or Halloween. Yeah.
Sure, certainly, you know, be mindful of when you're down there, what season you're down there. If it's Halloween season, then, you know, there's more of a chance that you might be, you might see something that's staked out there, you know, just to have a little fun or, you know.
But that is half the fun of the legends that evolve from nothing like this and just kind of hang around. Is just giving yourself a nice little scare. In other words, if you go out there and you don't see anything, it's a pretty drive. It's good.
Absolutely.
Good get away from the city.
No, it's lovely in the fall.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Plenty of leaf-bearing trees out there.
Well, even in the spring, go down there. There's a maple farm down that way, too, so well worth seeing. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, there's our tourist
As a matter of fact, it was a maple farm that rented the space.
Yeah.
For our corn maze.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, well, that's our tourism plug for this one. So anyway,
absolutely.
Well, I think that's a good practice run. And
thank you for listening to our Ghastly podcast.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Unearthly Upstate. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our webpage. We're also on Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean, and Google Podcasts. Please like, share, and review, and if you really like us, tell your friends. Unearthly Upstate is an Animated Liar production. The show is produced by Mari and Matt Minette, research and writing done by Mari Minette, Music is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Unless stated otherwise in the episode, the places mentioned in the broadcast have not paid or contacted us for any type of promotion. Please check out our webpage for full credit and source listing for this episode. Have a great day.